You're listening to episode 90 of the Play Therapy Community Podcast.
Welcome to Play Therapy Community Podcast, providing connection, information, and inspiration to child therapists all around the world. Here's your host, a licensed psychotherapist, a registered play therapist, and my mom, Jackie Flynn.
Well, hi there. Thank you so much for joining us in the Play Therapy Community Podcast. I just love meeting with you like this. Today, I have a special treat for you. I can't wait for you to hear this conversation. But before we get started, I want to let you know about Marshall's Miniatures. Marshall's Miniatures it's created by Marshall and Heather Lyles. They have a beautiful workshop there in Austin, Texas. I just recently got to go to a training of theirs, and it was literally life-changing. We learned all about using sand tray therapy to connect with our parts. It was on dissociation. So if you're interested in learning more about Marshall's Miniatures or his workshop or any of his trainings, go to marshalllyles.com. He was a presenter in our recent Neuroscience of Play Therapy Summit at the beach that Dora Henderson and I hosted, and I learned how to use poetry in session from him. I had never even used poetry. I'd read poetry like a novice, but never even considered using it in therapy. And it's incredible. Some of the sessions that I've had since then have been really profound. So I love Marshall. And on a side note, Marshall is also a presenter at our upcoming Playful EMDR Summit with Anna Gomez and Marshall Lyles, that they're the main speakers. And it's hosted by Ann Beckley Forrest, Annie Monaco, and myself. And it's going to be amazing. We're going to do yoga on the beach. We're going to have, I get to do a part on playful polyvagal applications of EMDR with kids. So we're going to be playing hide and seek. I cannot wait. So, a big shout out to Marshall and Heather Lyles there in Austin, Texas. There is nothing but wonderful things when you learn from them, and they just help us grow. I think of Marshall as like the Socrates of our child therapy world. All right, so today's episode is with Bridger Falkenstien and Caleb. Oh my gosh, Caleb, I don't know your last name.
That's okay. It's Boston, like the city.
Okay. So Caleb Boston. So I first met Bridger through Notice That podcast, and since then we've worked pretty closely together with Rotem Breyer. He is the facilitator, the host of the EMDR learning community. And he's someone that I've really, we're writing a chapter together I'm excited about, and I've really learned a lot from over the years. So I joined their Beyond Healing community, and it's a site that you can join. I'll put a link below in the show notes. And it is so good. In there, I seen where Caleb, which is so much like Bridger, Caleb had posted a picture that he used in session or a whiteboard that he used in session with his clients. And I, as a former teacher, I use a whiteboard all the time. I was like, oh my gosh, who is this guy? Oh, he seems just like Bridger, kind of. And then they had a video together, and then I'm just, long story short, here they are together, and we're having a conversation on the polyvagal theory. So before we get started, Bridger and Caleb, let me have you just kind of tell people who you are and what you do.
Yeah, I'm so excited that Caleb and I get to be together even on this platform. I sent you an outline of things we could talk about, but as I'm sitting here now this morning, it's just all about play for me. And I feel like that is what Caleb and I's relationship has really been, just in deep friendship and that ventral kind of social connected. I don't know, it taught me so much all throughout graduate school and through our practice of what it's actually, the importance of play. But yeah, so we are the creative directorship of Beyond Healing together. In our partnership together, we kind of steer the creative vision, at least humbly so, of Beyond Healing. And that means we're working on theory a lot together. We're just kind of what we call spinning up, which is essentially just being playful together about making connections with theory and synthesizing ideas and talking about new ideas. And so that's a lot of what we do. And then we do a lot of podcasting together. We have another podcast within the Beyond Healing, the Think Beyond world, which is the evidence-based therapist. And we just recently published an episode in that podcast called The Polyvagal Theory is Dead, which is a spoiler alert, it's not. And the point of the podcast was to respond to some of the criticisms of PVT from an academic lens. Of what we see as still the hope and vitality and beauty and strength of the polyvagal theory. So if you've heard any of those criticisms over the years of polyvagal theory, please go check that episode out. But shameless plug there for Caleb and I, basically just like playful hours together.
Yeah, I've had some of those questions towards me as well. So I'm glad there's something out there, especially from you guys. The way that you explain things are so, it's just so easy to understand. I know when I asked you about Caleb, you said you guys are kind of like twin flame. That's beautiful. I think about twin flame. I recently just learned that term.
Oh, yeah.
I have a twin flame too. It's like the most amazing feeling. You have this other human being on the planet that you just vibe with, like in so many ways beyond words. So
Yeah.
that's where you're at with Caleb. And did you guys go to grad school together?
Yes, we did. We did. Caleb, what are you making of I've introed our relationship, I feel like
Yes.
so many times. So what are you feeling about that
Yes.
version?
Oh, I feel very seen and like a warmth feeling in my heart and my gut. Yeah, I think it's astounding and so fun to be able. Therapy is such a serious space to hold for clients, and can be so like we're in just kind of some of the darkest places of human experience. But then to come out of a session and to be able to connect with someone who is like-minded and just say, "Can I tell you about this thing? Can we process it?" And also, like, I just heard that polyvagal theory was dead. Can we talk about what the heck that might mean? And to be able to spin up on that and process life together is such a beautiful part of what we have at Beyond Healing. And then also Jackie, you coming into the community, already feeling that sense of connectedness there, that, and very in line with polyvagal theory, we can, through play, which is safe activation, we can grow and develop. And yeah, Bridger and I spend many hours playing together, and that's the beauty of being connected to other therapists.
You know, on that one video of you guys at the whiteboard, and you were teaching about the brain and the body, and Bridger's like, "Caleb, you draw the brain," and you're just ready. I was like, "Oh my gosh." It was just so fun to watch, and it was so educational. So
yeah, one of the things that we do, I think spend a lot of time on, is thinking about how polyvagal theory makes sense of kind of just a lot of life experience. We would believe all of life experience can be viewed through a polyvagal lens. And I think for Caleb and I, one of the things that the relationship has taught me as an academic is that, this concept of neuroception in polyvagal theory, that we have this, subconscious and unconscious radar that's sensing internally and externally for senses of, or cues of threat and safety at the, kind of looking for all of it. And for Caleb and I, what I've experienced is that I can experience true co-regulation with him, because I can look to him as another indicator of where's threat in the environment, and are we safe enough together to sort it out. Like Caleb was referencing just that one moment of, I just heard the polyvagal theory is dead. We got sort of a flood of emails, I don't know, Caleb, like a year ago or like 8 months ago or something, from consultees and people that we've trained, sending us these blog posts and articles that had been published in these magazines about how there's no hope left in the polyvagal theory. And So that was just one example of where we were able to come together and experience a flurry of activation that kind of says, okay, let's get our mind around this thing. Let's see what we can make of it. And together we were able to just be both connected, feeling the full range of that sympathetic and kind of mixed state with the dorsal, like collapse, kind of shutdown. We talked about that on the episode, that we were kind of feeling a mixture of sympathetic and dorsal at the beginning, but ended in the space of ventral together because of our, I think, connection and what we made of the research together.
Yeah,
Beautiful.
Yeah, I was gonna say, Bridget, you saying that makes me think of like the importance of like human connection, especially as therapists reading research. I think it's so easy for research to be almost assumed as that should be our voice. But we sit with clients, we're actually the ones in the room. And I think one of the things that stuck out to me when we were reading those blog posts is, well, I get so much richness from my sessions by integrating polyvagal paradigms and even teaching polyvagal theory to my clients. So if there's new research that is dismantling it, quote unquote, how do I make sense of my lived experience then? And that's just as important, and something we talk a lot about on the evidence-based therapist, of like, we have to pay attention to we're scientists as therapists. We're running experiments every day with what works for our clients, and taking into account our own lived experience is just as important as what a researcher is saying in black and white ink on a paper. And I think the safety of our relationship and what we've connected with so many other therapists is like, you can still find a way to make sense of polyvagal theory and its critiques, and it be useful in session, and that it's beautiful for every voice involved. I think some of us come to research thinking, well, there's right researchers and wrong researchers. And we like to tell kind of a different metaphor of research is a story. There's people who are coming at the same problem from different points of view. And if we can hold all of it together, we actually get a much better story, rather than just reading chapters 6 and 7 because 1 and 2 had a different flavor.
And it really does explain like humanity and life. So regardless of what anyone says, the explanation is there. You could feel it. I think what you're describing, Caleb, is like that felt sense of, I'm with another human being in my pain. I'm not alone. So a lot of people listening to this may not even know what the polyvagal theory is or have even heard of it. So could you give we'll start out with a brief description or explanation of the polyvagal theory, if there is such a thing?
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, you were mentioning before we recorded that little 7-minute cartoon. So my mind is like, yeah, let's just like use that. But
I'll put a link below there.
Yeah. For our conversation, I think, just the 3 pillars of polyvagal theory are a good organizing principle. The first is that, and Caleb, I'd love for you and I to kind of dance together like with this, but the 3, the hierarchy of the nervous system being, we are organized evolutionarily around a dorsal vagal shutdown response and a sympathetic activation response, and then a ventral vagal activation response. Lots of different names for those across the polyvagal community. So, if you hear the main words of dorsal, sympathetic, and ventral, they're referring to the various myelinated and myelinated and unmyelinated branches of the nervous system.
And real quick, Bridger,
Yeah.
for us kid therapists, the kids, they name it something different. So like one of my teenager clients, it's like, the green one is vibing. I was like, oh my gosh, that's perfect. That is perfect. And then the sympathetic is like worried or when things are hard. And I thought, oh yeah, that's more that fight or flight. And dorsal is, one of them calls it the dark space, my dark side.
Yeah.
So many names for the same thing.
Yeah, I've heard colors, you said green space for ventral. I've heard yellow and red for sympathetic, and I've heard blue or black for the dorsal, just the absence of or the density of space that it feels like it's just collapsing in on us.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I love how like none of those are bad or good. We need every one of them, but there's definitely some that are easier than others, or the ventral vagal from what you were describing.
Yeah, totally. And we talk about this a lot, that the goal isn't to find one state. This developed evolutionarily to suit us in our mitigation of threat in connection with other humans. And so the goal is actually flexibility. We want to be able to respond. And Caleb, you and I were just talking about this yesterday, that we want to be able to respond to the needs of our environment accurately and efficiently, and in connection with other people, return to a regulated, and I'm talking about a physiologically regulated, like my heartbeat slows down, my breathing returns to normal, my blood flow increases throughout my body, and I feel more connected to other people. So really a measure of health is perhaps that the resiliency of threat mitigation can be found in how accurately we respond to a threat in the environment and how we return back to it together, safe in connection.
Gosh, that's beautiful. It makes me think of like a lot of clients come to me from all over, but I think about like medical trauma, and I think about the kid that has to go into surgery or to a doctor's appointment with intense fear, and being able to connect with a regulated person and being with them is just it's a game changer.
Yeah, one of the things that just in the history of the field and healing sciences, there used to be this kind of paradigm that there's really only two broad states. There's either rest and digest or activation. So you're feeling a lot of emotional energy towards some sort of threat. And I think that gave way to some theories of healing that say, well, if we can just talk about something but not get activated, then that's healing. Like you can talk about it, you can be there and process through it. But then Polyvagal comes in and says, it's not really what you say, but really it's how you say it. It's how you're feeling and experiencing the moment. Because I could talk about something, and I have clients all the time that talk about things that are very like either damaging or I'm feeling like, as they're saying, and I'm feeling a lot of activation, like, oh my goodness, like grief, rage, anxiety, but they're flat. And from a polyvagal lens, that's, well, their system is slowing down and in a shutdown sequence, so that they can talk about it and kind of perform this function of what therapy should be, but they're really not embracing the natural healing energies of their body and their nervous system. It's threatening to actually go there.
Yeah, Caleb, that makes me think of when we talk about this misnomer that we go offline, like parts of our brain go offline, which is, we say that to kind of communicate that we're not functioning as we are built to, or that we would in an integrated or healthy, quote unquote, state. But really how we teach it in our trainings is that's actually overactivation that's getting us there. So instead of it being offline, it's really like it's like hyper online, like it was hit by a lightning bolt and it fried the circuit. Like that's what the experience of being in dorsal is like. It's not that there's no activation. It's actually that there's so much that it's paralyzing to the organism. And so, yeah, I don't know, that's just what's coming up for me.
Well, and from a
perfect. I think when I think about like lightning hitting it, I've always thought like when I blow a breaker, like if I were to plug in my flat iron in the coffee pot in the same outlet, the breaker's going to blow. That's kind of like I like the lightning one better. It just turns off. It's too much.
Overloads the circuit.
Yeah.
Which to me feels like, and I have so many experience of like the de-shaming quality of telling someone who may be coming into therapy with more depressive symptoms, like, it's not that you can't feel or that you're not feeling. It's that your nervous system is saying, I don't know if it's safe to feel. We often say in SIPR model that it's not you, it's your nervous system. And your nervous system is always oriented towards protecting you. And it will overemphasize protection for your sake. And so conceptualizing depression it's not that you can't feel, because I know that neural circuitry is there. It's that we need to get a safe environment so that you can play around with feeling and then embrace some of that activation before we can get into the healing zones.
Yeah.
Caleb, that's beautiful. It makes me think of like Deb Dana's description of like the anchor. Like if they can anchor themselves like in our ventral vagal, like we're together, then they can safely kind of explore those painful things, knowing that they're still connected to us. That safety and connection is
Yeah.
huge.
We teach polyvagal theory in conjunction, like in synthesis with attachment theory. So thinking of like Bowlby's safe haven and secure base, as well as Jaak Panksepp's affective neuroscience. So really talking about, okay, here's this information superhighway in the peripheral nervous system connected to the central nervous system of the polyvagal system. So what does that do when it floats up neurosequentially or sensory motor, into the brainstem? How does it get made sense of to where it forms emotion, behavior, cognition, response all along the way, not linearly, but circularly? For us, we have to be talking about an integrated system, not like ripping the nervous system out of the body and saying, this is what does all of the behaviors. No, this is just an information superhighway within the body that has very experience and context dependent programming.
Yeah, and I remember, Bridger, in our last episode, we talked about like how, I'll own it as an intern. I was holding on to those workbooks. I was like, oh, I'm going to teach them. I'm a teacher. It's not about teaching. It's not like we have a brain over here and a body over here. Well, let's fill the brain up. And then later on, it's like all one big old system.
Yeah, it's like, I think the phrasing of polyvagal theory is so crucial. It's safety in connection, not safety in interaction.
Oh,
I think I can interact with my clients, but I'm not connecting to the state of their experience. But we heal in connection. And so as therapists, from a polyvagal perspective, I don't want to work around or against the state of their nervous system. I want to de-shame the state of their nervous system and feel with them. And that having this natural bubbling up effect of they'll feel safe, which then allows the brain to integrate more information.
oh, oh my gosh. Yeah, feeling safe. Like I'm okay just as I am. To throw in a cognition in there from our EMDR world. I think even just hearing you say that, I feel like that neuroception of safety, just even hearing your intonation of voice. And I do want to, describe something that happened before we even started recording this. Typically, I used to use a real nice microphone and now I've skipped on it. So I try to make the sound better by turning off the video. So I was like, oh, I'm going to turn off my video. And then Bridger's like, oh, let's leave ours on, Caleb, so that we could see each other and we can interact. And I think and now here while we're recording this, for those of you just listening, we're looking at each other, which is such a big part of the polyvagal theory. Like you feel safe just by someone's intonation of voice, by their body gestures, their movements, these little things that we pick up on that doesn't necessarily even hit the brain. It's more.
Yeah, and really, for me personally, it's so much about, like, I pay so much attention to the muscles around the eyes, and we're built physiologically to do this over the course of our evolution. Our eye shape, and specifically how much the white of our eyes is showing, is an indication of threat, safety, or desire to connect. Ooh. And so for us to even pay attention to the smallest, kind of shift in the eyebrow as it tightens the skin around the eye, or the furrowing of the brow, or the slight kind of, and for those on video or audio, you can't see what I'm doing, but like moving the eyebrows in to squint or to furrow your brow, what that communicates in the sub and unconscious of the other person that I'm mirroring to. Caleb, what do you think?
Well, and yes, I'm like so excited. I love talking about visual, auditory, and tactile experiences, because those are such important. Like, we are not just a brain on a stick. We're complex, embodied humans.
Humans, yes,
yes. And I love watching clients. Their eyes will tell you a story that their words are not. I think of like when they will drift and be literally looking at the problem. So we're talking about something outside of the room or something that's happened before, and their eyes will look at the problem and be processing, but then they'll make glances back to me as a therapist just to check in, just to say, am I safe?
Ooh.
And I want to meet those with an affectively attuned posture, whether it's like a leaning in and kind of, oh yeah, or like a, oh my God, yes, like I'm throwing up my hands and like, that's yes, like that deserves like rage or whatever. And they check, feel safe, and then they go back to addressing the threat. Check, feel safe, go back. But then there's other sessions where you'll see the wandering eyes that never catch the cues of safety that we're sending. And that tells me so much about what state they're in and really the limit of processing that we're going to do, because they're in a shutdown state. They're kind of looking away, kind of avoiding. And that's not like avoiding in a like bad way or an intentional way. It's their system doesn't feel safe. And so that's then where the therapy jumps in and says, hey, before we start talking about things, really want to spend some time just orienting towards the room, realizing that we're two humans in this space, and can we connect for a second? And that the eyes tell that story. I love that.
Oh, it's so good. So many things are coming up, Caleb, as you say that. First of all, like I'm thinking about like in your EMDR supplement, you guys have this supplement for EMDR therapists that are going through the consultation process to be certified. And one of the things, I think it's Melissa, it might have been Jen, it's like amazing. But one thing that I just heard in a video last night was to be very mindful of, you may need to go slower with some clients. You don't want to in any way push them to go faster than what they're ready for. And what you just described is like our way of knowing when they're ready or not.
Yeah,
It's
I think that
safe.
I think that it's intuitive to many of us, at least who are kind of empathically attached to our clients, like sensing, oh, I don't know if this is actually helping, or if we're going too fast, or if I'm accessing material like too quickly, or we don't have enough resources. But I feel like with EMDR specifically, our field doesn't do a great job of teaching therapists how to know the why behind that, and how to know where to go when they do sense, that there's overactivation in the system, or, we have the autonomy that we encourage our clients to have, where at any point, if this becomes too much, you can open your eyes or raise your hand and stop. But what's actually causing that? What's underneath the surface? And I think neuroception is an amazing way into that conversation, as we talk about how we know what threat is in our body as an individual, how we know what safety is as an individual in our body, why resources work, why they don't work sometimes, why memories dysregulate us. Like all of that can be so vividly articulated through the polyvagal theory.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. One, I was just going to say, like, to identify that our clients may not know what threat activation even feels like. I mean, trauma's main effect is an overactivation or an over inhibition of our natural threat responses. And so, like, to leave the client almost on their own to say, when you feel uncomfortable, raise your hand, feels almost like, like they may not know that. But if I, as a therapist, can be picking up on the cues and the signs and say, I'm getting the sense that this may be a lot, and I'm curious if maybe wanting to slow down. Like, to me, I'm just imagining being a client and not noticing my own activation. And then for somebody to say, hey, this feels like a lot, would be like, oh, like hand on the heart, just like, you see me, you feel what I'm feeling. And I wasn't even aware of it till you said it, but man, it's so true. And polyvagal theory gives us that lens to see the hidden activation patterns of our clients, because the body's going to tell us. It can't tell lies. It doesn't need to. And so partnering with the body is so crucial in that way, to help processing go at a tolerable pace.
It's the truth of the body. And gosh, what I'm thinking about is like how that pans out in the kid world. You get like a 3-year-old, 4-year-old coming in for therapy, and they're behind their parents' legs. And you're thinking, okay, what are we gonna do? Like, how is this gonna work? And you drop like all of the, uh, like complex ways of thinking, and you think, how can I make this person, this human right here, feel safe and connected? So one of the surefire ways that we do it in child therapy is to play ball, of all things. So I'll have, say it's like a mother sitting there, and then the kid ends up like behind the mom, just peeking out. I will toss the ball to mom, and they'll say, Mom, toss the ball back to me, Mom. And then meanwhile, the kid's like peering out to see it, and they see that reciprocity, that back and forth. Is she safe? Is she not safe? Now, Mom, I'm going to toss the ball to you. Now, Mom, you toss the ball back to me. So it's like 2 minutes, some valuable 2 minutes. Then I say, Mom, guess what? You get to choose whoever you want to toss the ball to. And she'll say, I think I'll choose to toss a ball to, say the kid's name's Johnny. And then all of a sudden, Johnny moves away. Johnny's feeling a little safe and he's ready to catch the ball. Okay, Mom, you chose to toss the ball to Johnny. And then I make eye contact. And then there's this reciprocity between mom and child. And then I say, okay, you get to choose to whoever you want to toss a ball. We're playing ball 5 minutes. That safe and connection, it's a game changer. Then that safety and connections there, we can work on whatever's troubling them. It makes me think of like Dr. Porges saying, sometimes safety is the therapy itself.
We believe that it is the therapy. Beatrice Beebe, another amazing author in interpersonal neurobiology, says that safety is the treatment. Like, just bold, no, like sometimes, or like, but say just like, this is what it is. It's like, if somebody is finding healing, which is my mind and body both agree I'm safe in connection, then it is safety that has to be there in the space for us to heal evolutionarily.
Yeah, I work with couples too, and I think about that dynamic, that sometimes it can feel so unsafe in the therapy room. I started bringing the ball and the bubbles in there. It's a game changer. It turns out that polyvagal, Gottman, and play therapy are pretty good combo.
Yeah. It's all about play and safety and connection. I mean, I think and Caleb and I are both very playful therapists, regardless of the age. We both work with a range from kids to, adults and couples and kind of all shapes and sizes. And I would really love, and I'm conscious of the time, I'd really love for us to go and do a quick dive into the case that you just described, Jackie, where you were talking about the little kid who's hiding behind the legs and coming in, and for us to maybe just take an application approach to this case, because what you laid out was so beautiful, and I just want to put some language to it. Caleb, would that be okay with you?
Oh, that's so in line with my heart. I'm chomping at the bit to say at Beyond, we want therapists to have an experience like you were talking about, Jackie, and to know that neurobiologically, somatically, and from a relational science perspective, that makes 100% sense.
Total
and that
sense.
You have every reason to do what you did intuitively. But then sometimes as therapists, we feel like, well, I don't know why I did that. I'm just doing it. And our desire is to say, there's research for why that makes sense.
So much research. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So even in looking at that little, a small mammal of the child with their mother, that across evolutionary history is a very vulnerable moment for that dyad, because we're going into a fairly unfamiliar place, which, thinking about neuroception in our autonomic hierarchy, our system is prone and primed to be activated in a sympathetic state in an unfamiliar place. It's just how we start to sort out cues of safety and danger in the environment. And so as the little kid is coming in, almost hugging mom's leg and just hiding behind, that is to me, I'm just feeling it in my own body. There's so much hope and refuge in the arms of that child holding on to mom, or just hiding in the shadow of mom, looking at this unfamiliar space. And then there's a human in this space. There's another person. Oh no, I don't know.
Oh,
And so
I
for
felt that. I
you,
feel scared just even you describing it.
yeah. And I think that level of understanding, this is why I wanted to go back to it, because we can really start to understand why maybe some people are slow to warm in therapy, especially little kids who are like, lady or guy, like, I don't know what you want from me. Like, I'm insecure in my relationships and you're asking me to connect with you. This is terrifying to me. I don't know what you want from me different than this. Before we move to the next phase, Caleb, do you have anything on that portion?
Well, yeah, just seeing how like that child mammalian organism is displaying these patterns of slowing down and connecting to mitigate threat, using the parent or the caretaker to say like, okay, you deal with that. Like there's major threat and I'm going to find kind of safety in this relationship. I think pairing that with attachment theory makes a ton of sense of the symbiotic quality of these early relationships, as the caretaker or these big mammals are like the main way this small mammal finds safety from a very sensory overloading world, a potentially dangerous world, and that the child is just finding refuge there.
Yeah, I call it refuge in the shadow. Like that's what I talk about so much. And just to go from a place of being in the womb surrounded in co-regulation for so many, like that's the ideal. If something is going wrong with the the prenatal environment and there's chaos in there, that's troubling, and we see the effects of that moving forward. But ideally this would be the epitome of co-regulation in that nurturing environment. And to go from that to postnatal is like, here's just a bunch of threat that you have no idea how to deal with as a new mammal emerging into the world. And that child who's 3 or 4 years old is not that far removed. I mean, we as adults are not that far removed relatively from knowing that and feeling the felt sense of danger in our environment. And so for Jackie, for you to know that connection with the child is going to be facilitated through their secure attachment figure or through their parent figure, that is, again, so in line with attachment theory and polyvagal theory. And the way that you engage them wasn't with this left brain, like, okay, tell me what's going on. And, let's talk about and talk. It was, hey, I've got this ball. Let's play catch.
Yeah.
And you start this ping pong. Yeah.
Yeah. With the caretaker, that to me, like Jackie, the intuition of that moment is brilliant to like play with, because Porges talks about like in severe threat, the fact that we click down into these lower states of being is evolution in reverse. And so this child is becoming a more dependent infant, quote unquote, not physically, but mentally in that space. And so to then try to engage the child would feel too much. It'd be intolerable. So then to engage caretakers is sort of like, let's play with the transitional object of the child for the child to know that I'm going to care for the transitional object. And then that gives this safety, this observed safety of, oh, okay, it's safe to play here. I trust my caretaker. I find refuge in them, and they're sending cues of safety to you. So then, okay, I guess I can jump in and play now.
The last piece that I wanted to note was how intentionally, Jackie, you spoke to the shift in eye contact. Even as you were describing the story, you said that you're mainly kind of attending to mom, maybe having passive attention to where Johnny in this analogy is, and what they're making of all of this for when you're going to transition to invite the mom to throw the ball to whoever she wants. That mystery and wonder, and then the feeling of, oh, mom wants to throw it to me. Like that is such a precious glimmer. It has the opportunity to be anyway. And so for you to say that once that separation has been unconsciously and implicitly negotiated between mom and Johnny, is when now you turn your eye gaze and body energy kind of fully to Johnny. That again is such a, you did that with permission in their dyad. Like they had negotiated I hope this language is making sense, but
Oh, yeah.
they had negotiated that it's safe enough in this space to take a step back and to let this play be initiated. And so in that, you then said, okay, I'm going to honor that and shift my eye gaze from mom to now Johnny can throw it to me and I can throw it back to Johnny, and Johnny can throw it to mom and mom can throw it to me. And now we're a triangle of connection.
Oh,
That is so beautiful.
oh, thank you. Oh my gosh, it makes me want to run all my cases through you. It makes me feel super confident too. One thing, as you're saying that, I was thinking about Dr. Bruce Perry's work about how he says the and there was one case study there that he was talking about where even just little blips of interaction of play can create a sense of trust, and that trust is safe in itself. I am so super excited about your SIP training. For those of you listening that haven't heard of their somatic integration and processing training, they're going to be in Gainesville. So you may be listening after that's already happened. But I'll put links below to their website. I think, do you guys do it all the time? Do you do it recurring? Okay.
Yeah, we try to do it once a quarter at least. This summer, we're doing it 2 times, which is the first time we've ever done that. So
That's great.
it's growing. Yeah.
4 of my girlfriends and I are going to Gainesville. We're so excited. We're going to co-regulate. We're getting an Airbnb house and we're going to
Oh,
learn.
wow. That sounds fantastic.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. It's going to be polyvagal theory. Like even when we're not learning from you guys, we're going to come back and we're going to talk about what we learned and practice it together. We're all EMDR therapists. For those of you listening who aren't familiar with EMDR, it's eye movement, desensitization, and reprocessing. It's a wonderful type of therapy that you can learn more about at emdria.org, emdria.org. Now, Caleb and Bridger, we're almost out of time. So I want to check in. Is there anything that we missed that we didn't cover yet that we need to? And where can people go to learn more from you?
Yeah, I'd just like to say that the little moment we had of walking through that case example is it's such a core part of Bridger and I's heart to be in spaces with other healers where we can make sense of the senses in the room. And I think so often we're oriented towards what's being said in therapy and what's being communicated explicitly, but really taking advantage of these scientific paradigms that allow us to understand what may not be, said, but is shown. And for us as therapists to use that as very valuable data to work with and process through, that feels so resonant to me as a desire of wanting people to feel that same, like, oh my goodness, this makes sense. Mm-hmm. This like the human body doesn't do anything for nothing. Mm-hmm. And to be able to see that, to feel that, to work with that natural flow rather than to try to work against it is so core to my desire.
Yeah. And not just in the slam dunk kind of moments. Like Jackie, you gave a case that was like, beautiful. Like the only things on the evaluation are like, excellent, like keep doing it. Like, good job. But let's say that Johnny didn't feel safe. And in the initiation of invitation from mom actually collapsed farther.
Yeah.
Oh, how do you make sense of that? That is, to me, where in case consultation, it's so important to have an openness to the beauty of being human, which isn't always happy. Like sometimes it's tragically shut down and dissociated. That's still, and I know this is strange language, but that's still the beauty of being human. We have this range that is so adaptive to our environment, and to now bring our mind share together to understanding that through the research that has come before us, of which there is a seemingly unending synthesis available to us. That's really what we're interested in at Beyond, is trying to create a space where we together can synthesize and understand theory as it applies to these cases. Therefore, we can use any intervention to come alongside the case and the client therapist dyad to really bring about the healing that we're looking for.
Yeah, we're so oriented towards being like almost shame hunters, not only for our clients, but also for us as therapists. It's so easy on the heels of a very difficult case for the system to just default into I'm doing something wrong. But what if we looked at it as like the client system is actually doing something right? Like, I think it's sometimes forgotten that the client system doesn't want us to learn about these parts of them, because in the past, learning those parts has been damaging, traumatic. And so it's not what are we doing wrong? It's how does the presentation of the client make sense and that it's working in some way. And that being both de-shaming to the client and to us as clinicians.
Oh my gosh, it's so good. It just makes me think we need to do like a gazillion more episodes together.
That's what I'm saying. This whole time as Caleb was closing, I was just like, this is so sick. Like, this is so cool to be together and talking this way. I think it's very, very special.
Yeah, just real quick, and I know we're like running over on time, but as you say that, Caleb, I think about like we show up as such humans in that space, and I've been reading Gabor Mate's work, and it's amazing. One thing that he talks about is the importance of we need to do as much work internally as we do externally, or we're not going to be able to show up as that, like, to use Deb Dana's language, the anchor, which, by the way, everything she does, everything I've learned from her is amazing. But that piece of what do you do when it starts to shut down your own nervous system? And I think last week, I was maybe a couple weeks ago, messaging Bridger about something that we were supposed to meet. And I had just got out of a session to where I felt like collapsing and crying. I was so very sad about the content of the session. And I was like, I would love to just do a case consultation with you and record it and kind of talk about what's happening in me and help me be more present. So, gosh, you guys are wonderful. So we definitely need more. When you read a good article and it's like further research is needed, further discussion
That's
is.
this moment. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Further
Yeah.
discussion is needed. Yeah.
And it's very co-created, Jackie. This is a very safe space with you, and I appreciate you holding it with us.
Oh my
Yes.
goodness, it is an honor, All right, so what is for those that are listening, you can definitely click on the link if you're watching this through YouTube or on the website or something, but what's your address for those who are just listening, your URL?
So it's a beautiful, like, polyvagal informed URL, connectbeyondhealing.com. So that's the name for the website. And then you can Google or, look up on iTunes or Spotify or whatever, Notice That, which is the EMDR podcast that we have, Beyond Trauma, which is the client-friendly podcast that we have talking about the journey of healing from trauma. And then the evidence-based therapist, which is where Caleb and I and other clinicians kind of talk about how we're making sense of the world of research for the healing sciences.
That last one, I just recently heard about that through Rotem. So I'll put links to all of that. You guys read, I don't know where you get all this time to be so amazing, but you just kind of it's more for like the therapist to gather information in a real succinct way.
Yeah, just very briefly, I'm sorry to go in on this, but yeah, it's for really anybody with a nervous system in a way, but I think therapists who are going to, understand the importance of research. And we believe that all therapists have, a responsibility to stay educated and informed on what's coming out. But I think that graduate school doesn't do a great job of teaching people how to even cherish research, how to even consume research, let alone cherish it as story of our field. And that's what we're trying to do in that podcast, is to show people, the quip of the podcast is where we read so you don't have to, but we really hope that you do. It's like we've added parentheses to the subtitle. And to me, it's one of my favorite passion projects that is happening right now Beyond, where Caleb and I just get to invite people to come along the journey with us.
Yeah, really looking at the art of science and seeing that it's not just this lifeless field. And then also, hopefully, getting some science into the art of therapy, kind of doing that double play to help therapists feel seen, but also feel supported.
so that we could work with intentionality. We're not just
Yes.
shooting from the hip. No,
Yeah, that's right.
we're
Yeah,
doing it. Oh, that goes right back to the why. The why.
that's right. The why. And that's really where, we have Beyond Healing Center, which is the therapy and, kind of space, but then we have Beyond Healing Institute, which is about training and helping therapists on their continuing education journey. And in all the trainings that we have, that's kind of the center point, is that it's not about the what in therapy. That's the backwards analogy. It's really about the why at the very base of it, of how do we understand what's going on? And so in our trainings, we try and help people see that.
So good, so good. Well, thank you so much. You guys are amazing, and all the other great words that could be used to describe you. I really appreciate you coming on here today with me.
We will come back anytime.
Anytime. Yes. So fun. Such a playful space.
Yes.
Bye now.
Yes.